Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SoCal Mike B Studios, bringing you part two of Sam Harris's 5 Myths of Gaza and my breaking of it down 17 months later to see how it stood the test of time. And so let's just jump right in. So, in the first segment, we went through the introduction and myth number one. And so now, without further ado, myth number two.
Myth number 2. International humanitarian law requires that Israel's response to Palestinian aggression be, quote, proportional. Well, the term proportional is being widely misunderstood when talking about the war in Gaza. To be truly proportional, in the way that many people imagine this word is used, Israeli soldiers would need to rape, torture, and murder the same number of Palestinian non-combatants as Hamas raped, tortured, and murdered in Israel on October 7th. But of course, no one believes that such reciprocal savagery would constitute a sane or ethical response to Hamas's violence. In fact,
However, we do have evidence that Israel also has been doing such awful things. So, yes, Hamas did do some terrible things on October 7th, 2023. But we also know that Israel is also doing horrible things as well. And we actually have it on video. Let's go ahead and take a look. We don't have to see more. I mean, but you could tell the savagery on both sides is disgusting and it needs to be called out. And so, this happened before Sam recorded, or I'm sorry, this happened after Sam recorded this podcast. However, I do wonder how he feels looking back upon this now. I mean, we knew that there were atrocities being happened when he did record this video, but the brutality on both sides is just disgusting, and it needs to be called out. And that's why I'm doing this. So let's keep on going with Sam's myths and take a look.
the concept of proportionality doesn't refer to the numbers of casualties on either side of a conflict, much less insist that they be equal. It simply asks that we weigh the military importance of an action against the resulting destruction of civilian life and property. International law allows Israel to utterly destroy Hamas, given what happened on October 7th. And given
And listen to what he says there: who utterly destroy Hamas, not all of Gaza, not the civilians.
the fact that they continue to fire rockets into Israeli cities, intentionally targeting civilians.
Now, if we were to see this on the news, you would, or if this were to even be happening, of Hamas continuing to shoot rockets into Israel, that would be all over CNN and they would be playing it nonstop. But when is the last time you remember hearing about Hamas shooting rockets at Israel? When? I mean, it's not happening. It hasn't happened in well over a year, but Israel continues to destroy all of Gaza. We'll take a look at some numbers in a little bit, but I mean, it's really bizarre.
As I've said, there is no way for Israel to fight Hamas without a massive loss of innocent life. Because again, Hamas has embedded itself in the civilian population.
And we talked about this during the last episode, where there's really zero evidence that they're using their own Palestinian civilians as human shields. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We have evidence that the IDF is using Palestinian prisoners as human shields. So again, Sam is just missing the point here and just really, really off.
on purpose to cause as much civilian death as possible. Jihadism aside, in this age of social media, it seems that many people are discovering for the first time what modern warfare is actually like. Quite independent of the rightness or the wrongness of any cause, enormous numbers of innocent people die. The Allies killed hundreds of thousands of German civilians in World War II, and hundreds of thousands of Japanese civilians along with them. How would that have looked on TikTok? And more recent wars are no
It would look bad and people should call it out. I don't understand why the militaries of different countries get a pass when it comes to killing innocent civilians, but then when a terrorist does it, they everybody's up in arms and saying, "Oh, whoa, 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 they're barbaric." But then when a military does it, they're like, "Well, that's just what happens." All right, let's keep on cruising.
and more recent wars are no exception. Around 2,300 U.S. soldiers died in the war in Afghanistan, and yet we killed over 50,000 members of the Taliban and other opposing forces. And around 50,000 Afghan civilians died too. So there was around a 40-to-1 disparity in the number of deaths between the two sides.
That's
In the
wrong.
war in Iraq, we suffered twice the fatalities, around 4,600, and we caused something like 40,000 military deaths, so a 9-to-1 ratio. But there were somewhere around 200,000 civilians killed in that war.
That's
Of course,
wrong.
many of those deaths were due to the sectarian conflict between the Sunni and Shia in Iraq, for which we also get blamed. Accepting that blame yields a fatality ratio once again of over 40-to-1. My point isn't to defend any of our tactics in past wars,
What are you
or the
doing?
wars themselves. My point isn't even to defend specific choices that Israel has made in waging this war. Frankly, I don't consider myself informed enough to know what they should be doing. My point is that Israel is being held to a level of scrutiny in how it conducts this war that has never been applied to the United States, or the UK, or France, or any other country in a time of conflict.
I disagree. There's been so many people that said what the US did to the Middle East over the past couple decades has completely destabilized it. And there's many war crimes from Obama to Trump the first time to Biden to Trump right now. We've been calling out the war crimes every time they happen. So saying that there's a double standard is just kind of burying your head in the sand. I don't get it, man.
And unlike our wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, Israel's war against Hamas is genuinely existential. And again, they are fighting jihadists who have built hundreds of miles of tunnels under a civilian population for the purpose of maximizing the loss of innocent life.
No, that's not what it is. Remember how you were saying that Gaza gets more aid than any other state has over the past couple decades? Why is that? Why is that? So, do you think that the tunnels might be for something else other than just having Israel kill all of these civilians and saying, "Well, they have tunnels and that's where Hamas is, and we're just gonna kill the civilians because we don't know what else to do," even though they're showing their brazen attacks with the pager, um, thing that they did in, what was that? Lebanon, right? They blew up a bunch of pagers, which also hit some civilians as well, but not as much as a bunker buster, you know? They went and got Qasem Soleimani, and I mean oh, I'm sorry, that was Trump that got, they went, Yahya Sinwar. They went with the drone, right? They went right in there and boom, they got him. They didn't have to blow up a whole they could have, and I'm surprised that they didn't, but it shows you that they could if they really wanted to. And that's not what they wanna do. They wanna get rid of all the Palestinians and ethnically cleanse them, and we have quite a bit of evidence that that's what they're doing because of the words that they're saying.
It's an impossible situation. Of course, the loss of civilian life in Gaza is absolutely tragic, and nothing I'm saying here is meant to minimize the horror of it.
It is.
I'm repeating myself on this point for a reason, because it's very difficult to maintain moral clarity in the presence of dead and injured children. Okay, our hearts tell us to rescue children by whatever means possible, and it's a good thing that we have that response. But we can't lose sight of the fact that all this tragedy and horror has been consciously engineered by Hamas for
Not people that are dropping the bombs and sniping the kids in the head and using collective punishment in the way of starvation by blocking aid getting in. How is that Israel defending themselves by blocking aid to get in? If they really want to make sure that those hostages are doing well, I don't think that starving the hostages is the way to do it either. But nobody's saying that.
reasons that make perfect sense to jihadists, but which no normal army has ever contemplated or would ever contemplate. Yes, this conflict has many of the features of ordinary guerrilla warfare, but guerrilla warfare plus certainty of paradise is much worse. There is simply no good way to fight an enemy of this kind. When you are fighting jihadists, your own scruples, the shame and horror you feel at killing non-combatants, become another weapon in their hands. Jihadists are very clever. They know that by our own moral code, the images of innocent civilians being killed in Gaza are totally unacceptable.
And why does the IDF keep on doing it if they're just playing right into the jihadist hands? Why, Sam? Why?
They know that we can only tolerate so much of that, lest we become unrecognizable to ourselves, lest we become monsters. But these people are already monsters. Hamas simply doesn't care about Palestinian children, and they are committed to murdering Israeli children whenever they can.
When's the last time an Israeli child has been murdered by Hamas? When's the last time the IDF killed children?
That is why they have to be destroyed. There are only terrible and more terrible options here. And again, the problem is deeper than Israel and the Palestinians. Eventually, Muslim societies need to understand that their religious beliefs, specifically the doctrines about jihad and martyrdom, make any conflict of this kind far more pointlessly horrible than it needs to be.
But Sam, you don't go and talk about the Torah and how it says that, remember when Israel left Egypt? Remember when Moses led them? What did they do? They kept on going and massacring other people's lands and taking it and occupying it. And they went all the way through and by God told them that it's all right to go kill everybody there, including the children. It's kind of like what they're doing right now in Gaza, huh? Why don't you talk about that?
That is their fault, and it will remain their fault no matter how many children die in Gaza.
Doesn't the Torah also talk about how the Israelis are God's chosen people? And doesn't it seem like Bibi's trying to make the greater Israel? Because it's supposed to be their land, right? Because the Torah says it is. You don't talk about that. Maybe it's because you're, Islamic phobic.
Again, modern, democratic, largely secular societies must wake up to the reality of the situation. We have a sadistically insane terrorist organization.
Maybe the ones that are doing most of the killing, right? This whole myth number 2 was about proportionality. This might be a good time to go and take a quick look at how proportional this has been. Let's take a look real quick here. All right, as you can see, we have some numbers here. 57,418. And this is a conservative estimate. This is Palestinians have been confirmed killed since Israel's war on Gaza began. At least 6,860 since March 18th through July 6th of 2025. And this is also accompanied with America's help, right? As you guys know, it's already been admitted that the IDF in America teamed up to do this fake aid support. And when the Palestinians were desperate and going to try to get some flour or any type of food that they could, they were being shot. How is that defending themselves? I mean, come on. During the ceasefire, 170 people were killed. Before the ceasefire, October 7th to 2023 to January 18th, 2025, 46,913. And again, these are conservative estimates as well. And some people might say, like, oh, this is coming from the Palestinian Ministry of Health. Well, the IDF uses these numbers as well. And in the past, they've actually shown to be very accurate. And again, this is a conservative estimate because we actually don't know how many are missing. Very interesting words were spoken. Not Bibi's out here in America right now, but last time he came, he had a press conference with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump said there's about 1,800,000 Palestinians left. Well, before the conflict, there was 2.1 million. So there might be up to 300,000 plus that have gone missing or have died as a result of this conflict. So, how many were killed on October 7th, 2023? Proportionality, huh? Let's keep on going on.
Raping, torturing, and murdering non combatants and taking hostages, including children, and then using their own children as human shields.
Again, no evidence of this. And if you're wondering about Palestinian prisoners, you should go see if there's any minors, any kids that are being held by Israel.
So that they cannot be effectively fought by civilized people. They know that eventually civilized people become a little less civilized in situations like this and can care only so much about collateral damage.
You know, we talked about the Palestinian prisoner who was raped, and they actually were going to charge that IDF soldier for the war crime that they committed. And do you know what happened with the civilians in Israel when they heard about this? They protested and said, no, he should not be prosecuted. And they hailed him as a hero. Let that soak in.
So Israel can be expected to slip off the moral high ground by killing enormous numbers of non combatants and even commit its own war crimes eventually. And civilized people the world over who imagine themselves unimplicated in this conflict will become hysterical and put pressure on Israel to stop fighting.
Damn, you just said that they're going to commit horrific things and war crimes, and people should be hysterical about that. Because what do you think is going to happen the next time some authoritarian monster wants to go commit these type of war crimes and genocides? They're going to be like, well, Israel could do it. The world stood by and let them do it. Why can't we? I mean, look at the precedent that is being set here. Disgusting.
As they did even before Israel started fighting. The crucial distinction, which almost no one can keep in view, is that there are now two types of people in this world: those who intentionally torture and kill children,
They sniped him in the head. Doctors Without Borders provided evidence of this.
and other non combatants, to maximize horror, and those who seek to avoid doing so, however imperfectly, while defending themselves against the first sort of people. The gulf between these two groups could not be wider, and everything we care about, literally everything, exists on one side of it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you made it this far, can't thank you enough. If you liked the video, please hit that like button. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel. It costs you guys nothing, and it helps me out a lot to get the word out to everybody. And the next part will be part 3. We'll cover the remaining myths that Sam goes over, and I'll break it down for you all. I already recorded it, but I want to keep these videos short enough so that way you guys could digest everything that's being said. Don't forget to leave a comment if you can. If you disagree, tell me why, and we'll have that discussion. If you like what I'm doing, leave a comment and give me a shout out. All right. I hope you all have a great one, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.